Hello and welcome to a post-Halloween episode of Starside Chat. I am one of your hosts, Aaron, and with me as always is Zach. How's it going, Zach?
Good. It is no longer spooky season, I guess.
Did you see any video game-themed costumes?
I did not, no. Did you?
I saw a small child and what I believe to be his sister as Mario and Peach.
Oh, nice.
But other than that, it was mostly just generic. I saw a lot of like generic tactical gear, which could have been from a video game. Maybe they were from like Black Ops or something. But yeah, just like kind of a lot of generic, just like a lot of holsters and tactical equipment strapped to their chests.
I was going to say, maybe my best sort of approximation of like Halloween trick-or-treating is watching those Shibuya Halloween videos.
Oh, yeah.
Which I did watch. There were a couple of them that came out the other day, and I was watching some of those. For some reason, even in those, it was a lot of like tactical gear. You see like the weird other costumes that are out that people are doing as well, but like, I don't know. Maybe it's like a theme this year. People are super into.
It could
like,
slot into a lot of
stuff,
different
basically.
categories. Like it could be Resident Evil. Like you could be someone from Siege, Rainbow Six Siege. You could be pretty much any like war game. You could just say like, "Oh, I'm from this."
Some sort of post-apocalyptic zombie survival situation.
Ooh, spoiler for a little tease for what we're going to talk about in a little bit. I have a question for you before we get started with news, Zach, and I'm very curious to see how you're going to answer it.
Okay.
Do you have a favorite candy?
Do I have a favorite candy? Well, I don't really eat sugar anymore, so
you don't really eat sugar.
I don't currently, but there was a time when I used to love Mike and Ike's.
Oh, really? That's interesting.
Yeah. I don't know. They were just like, it was like my travel snack when I used to like do a lot of driving fairly long distance. I would always have like a box of Mike and Ike's that I would munch on as I drove.
What are the flavors of that?
I mean, they're different kinds. It's just like
Is it like
fruit.
Skittles, where it's like a bunch of different kinds of flavors, or gummy bears?
It's basically that, but they're in like, I don't know, what do you describe the shape of a Mike and Ike?
I think because a Mike and Ike is like a non-spicy hot tamale, right? Is my understanding.
Yeah, basically, it's like a fruity, sweet version of like a hot tamale.
Interesting. Maybe I should get some Mike and Ikes.
They're pretty good.
Well,
you can actually get they have some that are like that are also sour as well.
I'm less interested in sour. Like I remember was it the same for you in high school where everyone was trying to get the sourest candy? Like they would have warheads and
that was like a very specific time. I feel like when we were in high school, like warheads was like a huge thing, and everybody was like, it was like the TikTok challenges before TikTok existed, where the challenge was see how many warheads you can eat at once without like
these are
dying.
Atomic.
Yeah.
Crazy time.
If warheads were like a new thing, that would be like a big deal on TikTok right now. It'd be everybody like seeing how little you can slobber while like stuffing your mouth full of warheads.
Or that weird powder. I feel like there was a weird powder that came with a little plastic spoon that you would also eat, but I don't remember what that was called.
Yeah, and the spoon was also consumable.
Oh, was it? I did not engage with that at all because I did not like sour stuff.
I was not a fan of that particular type of candy, so I did not eat those. But I did have warheads back in the day.
Well, what about today, Zach? We got some news today.
Well, today you could be listening to Nintendo Music on a very brand new Nintendo Music app.
Not only could I be doing that, I am doing it.
I am too. Yeah, I checked this out for sure because we've talked about this multiple times on the podcast in the past, where like in the background while I'm working on stuff or whatever, I'll just like go to YouTube and look up random Nintendo music, or somebody has inevitably put together like an hour-long sort of mix of like random Nintendo music.
Yeah, you'll get like there's like a study beats in Hateno Village or something.
Yeah, something like that. And Nintendo, I think, has like realized that that's a big thing on YouTube and that people are like want that type of thing. And so they finally made a Nintendo Music app. Well, I guess I say finally, but like who was anticipating this actually happening?
It's a weird thing for a couple of reasons, because it doesn't have all the music you would expect it to. I think music is going to come to it. But the weirdest thing about it is you have to be a Nintendo Switch Online subscriber to download it.
That is a weird thing. It definitely, like, inevitably people are going to be like, well, why didn't they just release their music on Spotify and YouTube Music and Amazon and whatever other music service? But this is like one way they can monetize it, basically. True. Is how they're thinking of it. They're like, well, we can just make this exclusive to Nintendo Online subscribers, and we can sort of sweeten that deal by giving you this extra thing. So yeah, they are adding to it over time. I don't know, like, they haven't laid out any sort of roadmap for it. So it's just sort of like Nintendo Online games, like you get what you get when you get it, I guess. Because they did launch it, and the other day they added the Super Mario Wonder soundtrack to it. So they're already like adding new stuff to it. So I don't know what sort of pace to expect as far as like new stuff being added to it, but it's got like the Breath of the Wild soundtrack and Super Mario Odyssey and Pikmin 4 and stuff like that. So it has some of the expected stuff from like this current generation of consoles, but they also have some like retro stuff in there. Like there's an old Fire Emblem soundtrack and like Metroid and stuff like that. I think they had the Metroid Prime Remaster in there as well.
It's something, another thing they added to this, which is pretty unique, is not all songs, but certain songs you can select to extend them. Yeah. So for instance, like Mario Odyssey, you're going to be in those levels for a long time. And so those music tracks are built to loop. And so you can just like, you'll start playing the song and it'll say, do you want to extend this by 10 minutes or an hour basically? And then it will just continue to loop as if you're playing the game, which is, I think, genius.
Yeah, and that's another thing that I feel like they could have picked up from YouTube, because very often when I look for a game soundtrack, they don't just have like a single song from like a soundtrack that's like 2 or 3 minutes long. It's usually somebody has looped it for like 15 minutes to a half an hour. And I don't always want that, but like sometimes it's convenient if it's like particularly sort of chill, relaxing, and like loopable, that you would want something like that to go on for a while, and you can put it on in the background. But yeah, they have the option. You can just hit an extend button and it pops up a little menu that's like, do you want to extend it for 15 minutes, 30 minutes, or 60 minutes? And so yeah, it'll loop for like an hour if you want.
Nintendo's in such a weird place right now because everyone is anticipating the Switch 2, which who knows when they're going to reveal that. But they keep putting these like crazy announcements out. I feel like we didn't really hear from them for a lot of this summer. And then now we've got Alarmo. We've got this. They released Banjo-Tooie, I think, on Nintendo, whatever the Nintendo online storefront is. I can't remember. And then they also this week released the trailer for Xenoblade 10 or Xenoblade X, which apparently people were really excited about.
I heard that one was one of the like Wii U games that was like a little bit mixed on, but it was like sort of tied down by the Wii U. Really? And now it's coming out on Switch, so it'll be, available to more people. But yeah, weird announcements. And didn't they also somewhat recently announce that Super Nintendo World was coming to Universal Florida?
Yes, that is true. Yeah, they're announcing everything but the Switch 2.
Right. They have all these weird different announcements, a lot of them unexpected, like Alarmo and this music app. But yeah, everybody's waiting for Switch 2, and they're just like, they haven't done it yet.
Not yet. Let's move on. We kind of have like a fun news, sad news, fun news, sad news, fun news kind of thing going. But let's talk about our first kind of bummer news.
Yeah, so the Concord studio, Firewalk Studios, has officially been shut down. I think a lot of people maybe expected this could happen, considering what a colossal flop Concord was. So it will result in 210 people being let go. And so that's a bummer that people have lost their jobs. But this game flopped maybe harder than any in recent memory. Such that they literally removed it. Like it's gone now. You can't play this game. And they spent like 6 years and like $400 million or whatever working on it. So I guess it was somewhat expected that they weren't going to get another chance. So, bummer, but I don't know if maybe they had made a single player game instead of a multiplayer game.
It's so weird because they were working on this for it must be wild to work at that, or to no longer work there, but to work on something for 4 or 5 years, and then it's out for literally, what was it out for? 2 months, not even? And then it wasn't even out that long. And then you're just in this weird space where you're like, well, I guess this thing we worked on is no longer making money. I wonder what's going to happen.
It's more weird because I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this studio was working on this game, and Sony was so convinced by it that they bought the studio and started pumping money into it. And then it flopped so hard that now they have closed the studio, which maybe if they didn't purchase the studio and just let it do its thing, I don't know.
It's such a weird story. I feel like you hear about acquisitions are almost always just nail in the coffin, where you buy something and then all of a sudden it's not successful, and then they're like, well, we got to kind of just strip this for parts, and then that's it.
So this Insider Gaming article I'm looking at says Concord launched in late August to less than 1,000 players on Steam and roughly 25,000 copies sold, and the game was shut down 2 weeks later with talk of a potential return as a possible free-to-play shooter. Obviously, that's not going to happen now.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
No salvaging it. And this was also crazy because I wonder how far ahead... Because their whole thing was there's going to be a weekly stuff. You're going to get the story in these weekly segments with all these cool characters we've invented. I wonder how far ahead they had worked that we're just all that stuff is just going to get deleted, I guess.
Yeah, and there was that Amazon TV show that was supposed to have a bunch of different video game episodes, and Concord was one of them.
Yeah.
It was going to get its own episode. I guess that probably will still happen, but it'll just be this weird vaporware thing.
Yeah. A weird, bad story. That's unfortunate. But I'd like to now talk about another weird thing.
Okay.
My YouTube algorithm suggested a series of videos to me. There are now 5 of these videos. And all of them are for a game I've never heard of. And it's all...
Oh, you don't remember this?
I don't remember it at all, no.
I'm pretty... correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure this is ex-BioWare people that have made a new studio and they're working on a game called Exodus. And a lot of people have been saying, BioWare is not the BioWare it was when the original Mass Effect trilogy and the first few Dragon Age games came out. So if you're not loving the direction BioWare is going, keep an eye on this Exodus game, because it could be the spiritual successor to the Mass Effect trilogy that you've been waiting for.
It certainly seems like the lore is very dense. And so what I've been being recommended almost every day this week is a new Exodus video. And the weird thing about them is they're all narrated by Matthew McConaughey.
Oh, really?
And he's just very casually being what do you know about the awoken bear? It's man's best friend, Because I guess there's a race of playable characters in this that are possibly bears that have been given super intelligence. I've linked 3 trailers. All of them are, I would describe as insane. It's just Matthew McConaughey being the Mata Yara think that the deep the deep space exploration is made of blood or something. It's insane.
Oh, was this also the game that he came out on stage at some press conference and was like, "Hey, I'm in this game, check it out." And then there was a trailer and he was not at all in the trailer.
Oh, I do remember him coming out. Was that this or what? I thought that was some sort of scary first-person game.
I thought so. I thought it was something else too, but maybe it was this one.
Maybe it was this one. Anyway, maybe you can drop just a little bit of audio from one of these where he's talking about how bears are so cool into this, but it's wild. And then I have linked an explanation article where it kind of talks about it. And yet I think you're actually right. This is ex-BioWare people.
I was just gonna try to look it up and make sure I was not misremembering this, but yes, it is ex-BioWare devs. So yeah, this is the one that I keep hearing people say keep an eye on this because it could be the spiritual successor to Mass Effect.
There's so many of these videos. there's like 5 or 6 of them now, and it's all just concept art. I don't know what this game looks like. I don't know if there's been a gameplay trailer or not, but the lore seems very dense, and Matthew McConaughey is locked in. I don't think he's actually going to be in the real... maybe he will be in the game. I don't know, but...
yeah, he was out there on stage talking about how he was going to be in some game, but I don't remember which one. But I do remember specifically that he was not in the trailer they showed, and I thought it was very strange to have him intro a trailer about talking about how he's in a game that there was no sign of him in the trailer. So I don't know.
The Bears one specifically, if you're going to look at one of these, I would say watch the Awakened Bear reveal trailer. There's one about birds. I guess birds or like ravens are a thing. The Coven. I haven't watched that one, but it's just weird. It's I don't know what to make of it. I want to see gameplay of it. It's like this is an instance where like marketing has kind of worked on me, and I kind of want to know more.
Yeah, I mean, I was interested in following this game to begin with because it was ex-BioWare people, and I kept reading that, you know, this is, you know, going to be for people who are fans of Mass Effect. So I'm ready to pay attention to this game as like more info comes out, but I had not seen these trailers yet.
Matthew McConaughey. He's good at narrating stuff.
Every time I think of like narration, I think of those car commercials he was in where
those Lincoln ones, yeah.
Yeah, he's just like sitting behind the wheel of a car and you hear this weird narration and it seems odd. And then they did the parody on SNL where
with Jim Carrey.
Jim Carrey was behind the wheel and he was like rolling a booger between his 2 fingers.
That was a good SNL skit.
That was funny.
Now on to more bummer news.
Okay.
Apex Legends changed their battle pass, and people were not into it, if you recall. I think we talked about it on the podcast. They like split it in 2 for season 22 or 21, and they thought that was going to make them a bunch of money, but it did not. And so the powers that be, the executives in charge of Apex Legends, have said that it's not meeting expectations. The microtransactions they're trying to get people to buy, people are not buying them. And so they have come out and said that to continue existing, Apex Legends needs to go through some drastic changes. And they did not really go into what those could be. But I would bet they're not going to be great because it seems like they want this to make more money.
Yeah. I'm curious what those drastic changes are. Are
it's
people
a great
just
question.
Not into battle royales the way they used to be, or?
It's a very unfortunately, there is like the ultimate battle royale, which is Fortnite, which is still very popular, I think, and it's like got every IP imaginable inside of it. So it like makes sense to, if you buy a bunch of like cosmetics in there, they're constantly adding new ones. The game's constantly changing, so it's like extremely hard to compete with like that juggernaut. Apex Legends is kind of good
if they're
at
adding other stuff on top of it, like they have that Lego thing.
And the racing one as well.
Yeah, there are different games within the game with Fortnite, whereas with Apex, you pretty much just get a first-person shooter.
So I'm not sure what is on the docket for Apex Legends, but it seems that they want to make some huge changes. And I can't imagine those are going to be good changes if they're like money motivated, you know?
Yeah, it is sort of being driven by the thing you don't want it to be driven by, but I don't know. I guess we'll have to wait and see.
I still have Apex installed on my Xbox, but I haven't booted it up in quite some time. Although I've heard that the new season is going to have a rework of Lifeline, and she's going to be able to like grab onto her drone and kind of glide on it like a paraglider, which I think is cool.
Yeah, you and I think, are from the generation that like multiplayer shooters, like you had Call of Duty and Halo. And for me, that meant, like every year or every other year, there's going to be a new thing that's going to come out, and it's going to switch things up and add new things. And you basically get to start from scratch in terms of progression. And that's sort of the hook that keeps you coming back. Whereas the model now is Fortnite and Apex, where it's just like this everlasting one game, just play and hope that the cosmetics are enough to keep you coming back.
Well, I mean, Fortnite also adds crazy stuff. Like, I almost jumped back in for the Halloween thing because they added that crazy chainsaw that you could ride. They're constantly reinventing the base game, which is, I think, hard to compete with.
Either way, I'm just saying, like, maybe it's this, multiplayer games are not of my generation anymore, and I just don't understand what keeps players coming back, because I think of them differently, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting. I didn't put it in the show notes, but there was an update about Marathon. Bungie put out an update about Marathon. Did you see that?
No.
They have said that, work is progressing and they're hoping to reveal more in 2025. So I'm betting at Jeff Keighley's game thing or whatever it's called. What is it called? Summer Games Fest. I bet we'll see some Marathon stuff in June because it seems like they're chugging along. But they committed to saying, like, yeah, it is going to be an extraction shooter where it's like PvP, VE, basically. And I think they're doing some beta right now. And apparently, they said the game has drastically changed based on playtesters' feedback. So, very curious to see. I wonder if people still think extraction shooters are a thing, and if Apex Legends will incorporate some sort of extraction game mode. I mean, they've got the maps. They have a lot of maps now. And they sometimes do fun stuff with them. Like, there was that, I think it was last Halloween, they did that game mode where it was tied into a cinematic about, like, the story that's going on overall, which I don't know about. But it was like you were a group of people trying to get from one side of the map to the other. And if you died, you became, what's the red robot? It's not Raven. I never play as him. Whatever the red robot is that has like a skull for a face, you would become like a shadow version of him, and then you would also chase the Revenant. Yeah. But that was like a cool idea, and it was an interesting way to use the map, like starting at one end of the map and going to the other. So I don't know what they're gonna do. I'll be hopeful, and maybe it'll be something cool, but probably it'll just be like I don't know. I don't know how to make money these days off of something like this.
I was gonna say, I always ask what the big extraction shooter is, because it's not on my radar.
It's always Tarkov. Nothing has gotten past Tarkov.
And is Tarkov doing like Fortnite numbers?
No, not at all. It's definitely got I would describe it as kind of like PUBG in that it's like got a very committed player base because of like the realism and stuff, but it's nowhere near. It doesn't have like, because it's so like complicated. And like, there's such a learning curve. It's not just like Fortnite where you can jump in and pick up a cartoon shotgun and start killing people.
Well, maybe Bungie thinks that they can sort of be the sort of Apex Legends to Fortnite, where they can make something that is like a little bit more approachable. Actually, well, I say more approachable because Fortnite is approachable except for the build stuff, but it has like some nice quality of life features, and maybe they're just thinking like, sort of online MMO type of games existed before, but nobody did it right until we came along. Maybe we can be that for the extraction shooter. I don't know what they're thinking, but I have a hard time thinking that that's going to be the success that they need it to be, but maybe they have a dedicated enough audience from like Destiny people that are gonna just switch over. So I don't know.
I wanted to end the news segment with a bang. Zach, I saw a trailer for a game that blew my mind, and it's a game called Showa American Story. And the headline that grabbed my attention was, it's like a Yakuza game meets Dead Souls meets Tokyo Gore Police, which is a movie I watched in high school that also blew my mind.
Do they mean Dark Souls? Why?
Oh, maybe is Yakuza Dead Souls another? Is that a property I'm not aware of?
I don't know. I thought maybe they mistyped their headline and called it Dead Souls instead of Dark Souls, but I don't know.
It's got extreme Yakuza vibes because it's very zany, and it's also extremely violent. And there's a trailer, there's like a 5-minute trailer that I think you should watch at some point. But It's the most crazy. I would say it's the most crazy game trailer I've seen this year. It takes place in a world that is like Japan bought large chunks of America and has like Japanified them, and then also a zombie apocalypse happens. So you're like in San Francisco, but it's like kind of an Eastern San Francisco, or like the new Hollywood now has like a new Yokohama sign instead of a Hollywood sign in the Hollywood Hills. It seems it's just weird. It's got that Yakuza flavor where everything is odd. Like you're the main character is this girl who I think her hand can turn into a giant drill for some reason. And she also, her face is always blurred out. It's like always pixelated for some reason. I wanted to shout this out. There's not really a way for us to, it's such a visual trailer. There's not really a way for us to like, talk about it on the podcast without just like showing it. But I really think everyone should watch the Showa American Story trailer, because even like skipping around in it, it's just, it's got this animation. I would describe it as insane for a lot of different reasons.
Yeah, I'm just like trying to skip through it right now, and it does look insane.
It's got that vibe, like it's got crazy people you run into. It seems to be a road trip style thing where you start maybe in California and you're trying to get to Washington, to the American president, who seems to be a guy wearing an American flag kimono, who is a samurai, who has a very hairy chest. I just think this has a lot going for it, and I wonder if it will break into the consciousness. Like if this trailer was shown at like the Game Awards in December next month, I think everyone would be talking about it. I don't know if that's possible because there's like a lot of gore in it and stuff, and it is maybe not appropriate for that. But
I was gonna say it's super gory from what I'm seeing.
It just is a weird vibe, and I think I really want to play it. I don't know what I don't think it's coming for any. I think it's maybe coming for. It just says wishlist on Steam, so right now I don't know if they have a console release, but
yeah, this definitely. If this was at some sort of showcase, it would be talked about in the same way those weird. Oh gosh, what is the name of that weird game?
Dokavi?
Yeah, Dokavi. It would be like a Dokavi situation.
Yeah. I want to know more about this game, and I hope I will. It's coming out in 2025, they say. They didn't give a specific date. There's a part in this where a bunch of men in Speedos Voltron into a larger person, which I think is weird. I love this. It reminds me of the movies. I think I've talked about this on the podcast before, but in high school, there was a Taco Bell KFC, and it was in the same parking lot as a Blockbuster. I'm really dating myself, but we would go to Blockbuster, rent a game and a weird movie from like the international section, usually like a Takashi Miike movie that was just like insane, like Tokyo Gore Police or something that just looked weird. And we'd watch that, and we'd eat Taco Bell and KFC, and then we'd play a game. And this seems like exactly like the game version of one of the movies we would watch, like Gozu or Full Metal Yakuza or any of the weird movies I watched when I was a child. And so I'm very interested to know more about this.
They actually cite Tokyo Gore Police in this Rock Paper Shotgun article we have linked in the show notes. Have
you seen that movie?
I have not. I should watch it.
It's very parts of it are kind of upsetting, but the plot of that movie is basically something happens where people can turn gore into weapons, and then they can also just like mutilate their bodies in crazy ways and still be alive. And so this woman works for the Tokyo Gore Police, and she has to figure. I think they're called engineers. People that can do that are called engineers. They have like a weird thing in their brain. Extremely violent movie. Maybe the most violent movie I've ever seen, or at least the most gory movie I've ever seen. But
they describe it as a brand new RPG, an enthusiastic love letter to 80s pop culture that features a strong taste of B movies. So yeah, I think that's what they're going for.
Check it out. Showa American Story. Hopefully we'll see more about it in the coming months.
Yeah, it would be crazy if they played a trailer for this at like Game Awards. But
I don't know what Keeley would say after this. He'd probably just toss to an Uber Eats commercial or something.
Yeah, just toss to this trailer and then go to break after that and just leave it.
Go immediately.
Don't even. No commentary necessary. But there are some games out this week. The Metal Slug Tactics is not out yet. It comes out on the 5th.
I'm excited for this.
So as we're recording this, it is not out yet, but it will be before the next episode comes out. And I do want to check this out because
it's giving me real Into the Breach vibes, which is a game I love.
Yeah, so I've been anticipating this one for a little while. I definitely want to check it out. So maybe we will both be able to dive in and have some impressions for the next episode. But so that's coming up. And then also Dragon Age The Veilguard came out on Halloween Day, and I have not played it. I don't think I will because I'm not liking what I'm seeing from it. We talked about it a little bit, but I just don't like the art style. The art style, they switched things up in a weird way. I don't know if you've seen any of the reviews for it, but
the reviews I've seen have been positive, but I just to my shame, I still have not played Baldur's Gate 3. And by all accounts, probably Baldur's Gate 3 is a more complex game. It won Game of the Year. And I feel like if I'm going to play something like this, I should first play Baldur's Gate 3. So, this looks fine. I've never played a Dragon Age game, and I don't know about like the lore or anything like that. So,
well, it's a weird thing because a thing I always hear is people talk about, well, I liked the Dragon Age Origins because it was more of a CRPG, and this is more of like an action game.
What's the line? Because there's Dragon Age Origins, there's Dragon Age Inquisition. Has there only been 2?
No, there's Dragon Age Origins, there was Dragon Age 2, and then there was Dragon Age Inquisition, which was the third one.
3.
And
so
now
this is
there's
4.
Dragon Age The Veilguard, which is 4.
Okay.
But the weird thing to me is, like, I'll hear people say, even people who are reviewing it negatively, were like, maybe it's just not for me anymore, and I just have to accept that and move on, and hopefully you like it. And I always think of that, hear that, and I say, I don't understand why people say that, especially like you hear that with movies and TV shows as well. But I always hear that and I go, it's a sequel though. Like, if they're not making it for you, who is it for? Like, why would you make if you were making a Lord of the Rings movie and the first one was like dark and gritty and super adult, and then they made the Two Towers and it was like a cartoon that was like super bright and punchy colors, and it was made for kids, the audience would be like, why did you do this? It just wouldn't make any sense. And I feel like that's kind of the direction they went here. It just seems it's not really a dark fantasy anymore. It's like the choices don't seem to matter. The characters seem uninteresting and weird. And there's like you can tell just by watching trailers and watching some of the clips that have come out or watching like a stream, but there's a thing, I don't remember where I first heard it, but where you see like a character in like a medieval fantasy thing and you say, oh, this character definitely knows what an iPhone is. They definitely got their personality. Yeah. They definitely got their personality from like doom scrolling on TikTok and watching the Marvel movies. And that it seems like how they've written the characters for this game. And one of the reviews I watched was like, these characters would not look out of place in a DreamWorks movie. They kind of have that Prince Charming from Shrek quality to them. And like the Canary, if you like pull up an image of Iron Bull from Dragon Age Inquisition, that's how the Canary are supposed to look. And then you look at them in this game, and you just get, you insert that meme from The Godfather. Look how they massacred my boy. It just looks terrible. So I don't like the art style. I don't like what I've heard about the writing. I have watched reviews from people I don't super follow a lot, like Skill Up and Mr. Matty Plays. I don't follow them a lot, but I will watch them occasionally. And I saw their reviews, and they just sort of confirmed a lot of the fears that I had about the game. And so, yeah, I think I'm going to pass.
I have a wild reveal about Iron Bull.
Okay.
Did you know he was voiced by Freddie Prinze Jr.?
I did, yeah.
I didn't. I guess I don't know who this character is, so maybe everyone knows that. But I was like scrolling on his Wikipedia page, and all of a sudden there's a big picture of Freddie Prinze Jr. I was like, oh my god.
Yeah. No, it was Freddie Prinze Jr. I thought about. I was like, I should reveal that to Aaron, and it would blow his mind. But
I would have blown. I mean, it's doing it right now.
But yeah, I've heard that a lot of the sort of consequential decisions that you'll make don't really happen until like sort of the final 2 hours of the game. And it seems like one of those games where not a lot of interest happens until the last couple hours of the game. And then you're like, you get to that point, you're like, why wasn't this how it was the whole game? So I don't know. And they've also talked about how the combat, like when we initially heard that it was going to be more God of War style, I was like, okay, I'm a little bummed that you're ditching the sort of tactical mode of Inquisition and the fact that you can't play as the other party members. That kind of bummed me out. But I was like, well, maybe if it does play a little bit like God of War, but you have like sort of the squad controls of Mass Effect 3, and they have some sort of variation on like the biotic combos of Mass Effect 3, it could still be fun and cool. But from what I am hearing, it sounds like the combat's kind of boring and repetitive, such that the enemies are just sort of spongy, and your first fight isn't very different from the last fight in the game, such that it doesn't really evolve in interesting ways. And so I don't know, I'm just kind of not impressed by what I've seen from this game, so I think I will pass on it.
They've got a lot riding on the next Mass Effect, I feel like. Do you think that's the next thing in the hopper for BioWare?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what else they would have. It's funny, I guess director of Mass Effect felt necessary to come out and say, to sort of after the reception of Veilguard, and say, don't worry, our art style's not changing. It is going to be more photorealistic. We're not doing that weird cartoony look that Veilguard did, and we're going to maintain our like dark, adult themes of, the Mass Effect series. Because that's another criticism I've heard about Veilguard, is that like you can't be mean to anyone. So there's not really like Paragon or Renegade options anymore. It's just like, and even like, this was a complaint about Andromeda as well. You'll get these dialogue options, and on like the BioWare wheel conversation, like the top right one is always like the Paragon response, and the bottom right one is like the Renegade one. And there was like one conversation that they highlighted where they were like, some guy comes along and he's kind of rude and mean, and you immediately don't like him, and the Renegade response is, who is this fool? And so when you go to click on that one, what the character actually says is, oh, who is this? And you're like, that's not what I wanted to say. So you get a lot of stuff like that. And I feel like, I don't know, maybe people are having a fine time with it, but I don't think this is what I wanted from Dragon Age. So
yeah, this reminds me of something I forgot to put in the show notes, but did you see there were those extended like gameplay sessions of that Indiana Jones game that came out this week?
I did not see those.
They flew some people out, or maybe they just gave them like remote playtime. But you can, if you go on like IGN, or I think Easy Allies also had a play session. They let people play for like 2 hours. They said it's fine, it's moving along. But one thing that I saw multiple people talking about, which I don't think is a bad thing, is there are dogs, I guess, that maybe attack you, but you can't shoot them because they said that Indy likes dogs too much. He would never shoot a dog.
But what if
I thought that was a funny thing.
What if it was attacking him?
I think he can disable them in different ways. Like there's an animation to like disengage with the dog, and like maybe like throw. I actually don't know how to get around it, but you're not allowed to kill a dog in the Indiana Jones movie game.
Well, anyway, a lot of the response I've seen for Veilguard has been I think it's overly positive when it comes to critics, but I think when it comes to audiences, it's kind of mixed. And I a little bit wonder if it's going to be similar to Starfield, where like the initial reception with the critics was fairly positive. I think it was maybe a little bit more mixed than Veilguard, but I think the response from the players, like after the fact, was more negative than it was positive. I wonder if it's sort of headed for a similar situation, but...
Is this Xbox exclusive?
Veilguard? No, it's on everything. And in fact, one of their big things about PC was that it was supposed to be really well optimized, and it's supposed to be deck compatible, like right out of the box. But no, it's on PlayStation and Xbox.
Did you? Oh, I forgot to say this as well. Apex Legends is removing deck compatibility from Apex Legends.
Oh, really? Why would they?
It's to do with anti-cheat. I guess it's easier to cheat on a Steam Deck, and so they're just like removing deck compatibility from it.
Interesting. That's weird.
It also could be a cost-cutting thing, because again, they're trying to like pinch all those pennies.
Yeah, I guess so. They're still trying to increase the amount of money they're making. But anyway, I haven't played Veilguard, so I can't say one way or another. I don't want to. It is a lot of like second and third party information. So like if people are interested in it, like I guess give it a shot and see what you think. But I have not been personally interested in the game. So
I still think it is wild that they changed the name.
Yeah. Well, and that's another one of the complaints is that it was going to be
Dire Wolf, right? Or something Wolf?
Something Wolf. What was that?
I think it was Dire Wolf. Dreadwolf.
And that was because it was going to be about what's his name? Oh gosh, I'm forgetting everything now. But
the Iron Bull.
No, Solus, the elf. It was going to be about him as the villain, and then they decided to make it more about the team, which I guess logically makes some sense, but like they sort of sideline both Solus and the dwarf with the crossbow that I forget his name, and you don't get as much of them in the game as you thought you were going to. And so I don't know. There's a lot of stuff like that I keep hearing about it that is turning me off.
Wait a minute. Are they doing... Because I remember watching the trailer for this at like the Game Awards or something. And like the elf guy is doing some kind of crazy magic, right? He's like somewhere and he's doing a bunch of green magic, right? To end the world. Is this
I think he was opening a portal to the Fade is what's happening.
Is this a Mass Effect 3 type situation where Earth is under attack, but let's go do a bunch of other stuff while that's happening?
I don't know.
I don't like that.
Yeah, it is sort of, maybe that's just a weird BioWare thing where
that's a bad idea.
Where they're like, let's introduce this world-ending thing that's happening and millions of people are under threat of death every minute of the day, but you're gonna go gallivant off in the galaxy for,
I don't know,
days and months.
I still am somewhat anti Mass Effect 3. I know you said they fixed a lot of it with DLC, but I think
I think I'm in the minority and you're in the majority on that, where most people hate Mass Effect 3. I loved playing particularly the ending. But
I loved playing it. I loved playing I did like every side mission and stuff. I didn't super like the ending. I'll have to say I invested a lot of time into that. And
I was gonna say, like, I can see where you're like, okay, everything up to the sort of ending, the point of no return sort of thing.
Yeah.
Everything up to that point was good and you were
solid.
On board with it.
Yeah.
But like beyond that, it gets into a weird area that doesn't feel like a satisfying conclusion to an epic trilogy. I can understand where you're coming from with that. I think they did enough to fix it with some of the expanded ending
DLCs.
But I think to a degree it's also a little bit of, there's like the last episode of Seinfeld syndrome going on, where like they play, there's this like clip show that you see that it highlights all the best moments of Seinfeld or whatever. And so everybody's anticipation gets so built up that by the time the final episode is ready to air, nothing they could have possibly done with it would have satisfied the people because their expectations were so incredibly high. I wonder if there's a degree of that sort of happened with Mass Effect 3's ending. But
I know that we've talked about this before, and we don't need to get into it again, but the Reavers whole thing is it the Reavers?
Reapers.
The Reapers whole thing is man and machine cannot coexist. But in Mass Effect 3, I made that happen. Like, we were cool with the Geth.
Yeah.
So why put that in the game? Why not have it be the Geth are a huge problem instead of, oh no, there is a resolution?
I think they say that, but also one of the endings is synthesis, where you sort of combine organic and inorganic matter to create like a new sort of species or new future for everyone that sort of does sort of make them able to get along.
Have they talked about what the time period is for whatever the new Mass Effect is? Have they revealed any plot details?
I don't think so. At least not yet. Although I don't know if it's just me being anti the direction they've gone with Veilguard, but there was a time where I was like, man, I hope BioWare doesn't close before they can make another Mass Effect. And now I'm a little bit I a little bit hope they close before they make another Mass Effect.
They supposedly have been working on it. Would you prefer it feels like they've really written themselves into a corner as far as following up Mass Effect 3. And their lore is so dense. Do you think they would go back and do, what was that called? The First Encounter War?
First Contact War?
Yeah, with the Turians and stuff.
I mean, I don't think that's what they're doing based on the trailers they've already shown, but I think it would be cool if they did something like that, even if it was like a spinoff. Like there was a long time there in the post Mass Effect 3, like right after it had ended, where I was like, my mind was on fire with the types of ways that they could keep Mass Effect going without even just doing like a numbered sequel. You know what I mean? Like where else could they go from here? Even if they didn't pick up the story after the ending of Mass Effect 3, they could still do like an infinite number of Mass Effect games, just like delving into the lore and backstory in different places on the timeline in the Mass Effect universe, because they had done such a good job of like thinking all of that stuff out and creating a timeline for the universe that they could have picked a spot on there somewhere and like started telling a story there. And I thought that's what they were going to do. And then they did Andromeda and it was kind of a mess. And now they're supposedly moving forward after that. So I don't know.
You said in the DLCs they found a way to fix all the mass relays, right?
So the expanded ending made it clear that the mass relays were not destroyed. They were just damaged. And depending on which ending you chose, either the people could restore them or they could even have the Reapers who, again, depending on which ending you chose, could help you rebuild them and could help you rebuild different societies. So like one of the options was Control, where Shepard basically becomes like the god of the Reapers who controls them as like some sort of intergalactic police force type of a thing, which was a weird ending, I thought. But in that scenario, or in the scenario where there's synthesis, where the Reapers are no longer your enemies, they're sort of, everybody has, you know, synthesized so that they're both inorganic and organic. And so now the Reapers sort of work alongside you, and each Reaper is like holds within them the history and lore and backstory and everything for every race that has ever existed in the however many years they've been doing this cycle of destroying the universe. So they have all of that within them. And so you now have access to all of that knowledge and history. And so they can help you to rebuild the mass relays and to rebuild societies all over the galaxy. And even, you know, you have the benefit of all the extra knowledge that comes with having the Reapers as your friends now. So there was that, or there was just the destroy ending where you do destroy the Reapers, and supposedly maybe they could still fix the mass relays. I don't know exactly what the implications are of the destroy ending.
See, I don't know how you write around that for a direct sequel.
Yeah, that's the thing is each of the, like, it took a lot of flack for not being different enough because the ending cinematic was like a color swap, and I get that, but like if you think about the story implications of whether Shepard commands the Reapers, or the Reapers are your friends, or the Reapers are dead, there is actually quite a bit of variance such that you can't really make a direct sequel.
Yeah.
Because it's so different depending on which one you choose. And so they either have to pick one and move forward with it and say whatever you chose in your playthrough like 20 years ago or whatever it was is no longer valid.
That's wild to think about.
Or we've set it so far in the distant future, and even in like, or do the Andromeda thing where you go to a different galaxy where it doesn't matter, and things are different enough that you can sort of write around whatever happened with the Reapers. And it seems like they're maybe trying to move it far enough forward that they don't have to address it. Or they can address it, but in like a vague sort of way that doesn't necessarily invalidate whatever your playthrough was.
I don't know. We shall see, I guess.
I look on the future of Mass Effect with extreme caution and concern. But we talked about it off podcast like a week or two ago, where we have to stop thinking of these studios by name only, because they're like the team that is BioWare today is not the team that was making Mass Effect games like 20 years ago. And it's that question, there's a name for it, I always forget, but if you take a ship and you pull out the old parts and you replace them with new parts, and you keep doing that until you've basically replaced all the parts, is it still the same ship? Mm-hmm. I don't think it is, especially in this case. Yeah. But it's the same with like Star Wars, right? Like George Lucas is not making Star Wars anymore. Disney Star Wars is not the Star Wars that we grew up with. And so that's why a lot of people are not into what's happening with Star Wars now.
Another term I heard recently, because I was watching this week's episode of What We Do in the Shadows, and they said a term in it that I had never heard before, but it makes sense. It's like people are buying things for the brand and the land. So like a big corporation like Microsoft will come in and they're buying the brand, and they're also buying like the land, in quotes, like, you know, the people. But then they can just do whatever they want with it, basically. They're not like looking to continue on the legacy. They're looking to have the brand and the land, and then just kind of do whatever they want.
Yeah, I think that's a good way of putting it. They are just, people still see the brand of Mass Effect and Dragon Age and BioWare, and they still think, oh, this is going to be the thing I grew up with. And it's not necessarily anymore. Yeah. It's like, and like the writing is the thing that really throws me off on Veilguard, because just the way they've written the characters, the way they're acted, and all of this, it's a real turnoff to me, because it's a little bit like if somebody made Game of Thrones and inserted like some weird CW like hyperactive person who was like had lingo from TikTok, you would just be like, this does not fit. It doesn't make any sense. Also, like the fact that like you can't be renegade at all, and it seems like so watered down, and like the dark fantasy stuff is dumbed down such that you don't have characters like, I don't know. There was like a clip from, I think, Dragon Age Origins where like one of the main characters, I think, like there was a cutscene and they like murdered some guy, and it was like really dark or whatever. Like you're not getting that in this new version of Dragon Age. It's everything is watered down. Everybody's nice to each other. And oftentimes the main character, the player character, sounds like they're talking to children, where they're having to address weird situations that don't seem to be of any consequence, and there's not really any arguing or fighting amongst the party ever. Like, the sort of arguments between characters seem pretty trivial, such that they're not even really against each other. And I think about in Mass Effect, you had multiple times where characters were like at odds with each other. Especially like in Mass Effect 2. And maybe that's just because Mass Effect 2 is like considered the best of the Mass Effect games. But
it's a good one.
But yeah, I mean, you had situations like that, especially with like Jack and Miranda. I remember being a big one where they were like, you had to figure out who to side with, or if you had like your speech leveled up so high, or you had built up enough of a relationship with the two characters, you could like find a way out of having one of the characters leave your party or something like that.
Yeah.
I feel like that's not a thing that happens in Veilguard, because you don't really have speech checks in that game. So I don't know. It's just, maybe it is because it's a different team and they're not used to the stuff from the old games, but it seems like you're not getting a lot of the stuff that made those like classic BioWare games what they were.
Well, should we get to what we've been playing / watching?
We should. So I've been doing more reading than I have been playing games. I have played some Black Ops 6, a little bit more of the multiplayer, and I've been enjoying that fine. It's been fun. I suspect it will wear out its welcome eventually, and I will unsub from Game Pass and move on. But for now, I'm still enjoying it. But I finished, so we talked about this last week, a book called We Solve Murders by Richard Osman, the guy who wrote the Thursday Murder Club books. And I enjoyed it well enough. I'm not sure I loved the style of it, but it was like very fast paced. It was like a quick, breezy read where like the chapters were typically like 2 to 6 pages long. And so you would always be like, okay, I can read one more chapter. And then it would be like 2 pages long. You'd be like, oh, okay, I can do another one. And that one's only like 3 pages long. Okay, I can do that. And so you just like knock out huge chunks of it, even though you weren't planning on sitting there for that long. Mm-hmm. And it's like the first in a new series. So it like sort of sets up a sort of new agency that they dub We Solve Murders as like this sort of murder investigation type of thing. And yeah, I thought the characters were likable enough, and it had enough twists and turns along the way that I didn't like, because they're sort of investigating 2 different people who go by pseudonyms, and at least one of them is sort of hiding in plain sight type of thing, and you're trying to figure out who's who. And there were times where I thought I had it figured out. I don't read a lot of mysteries, so maybe I'm just bad at it, and somebody else who's smarter with mysteries would have solved it halfway through. But yeah, I didn't have it figured out until the reveals happened, and so that made it more interesting to me. But so that's a solid book. And then I started a new book called Lord of a Shattered Land, and this is Howard Andrew Jones, I think is his name. The guy who has written books in the Pathfinder series, so like the Pathfinder RPG. So he has written those books, but he's also got this new series called In the Chronicles of Hanovar. And basically it's like a sword and sorcery fantasy book where this like revered general at this, big revered city is that city is sort of sacked by this evil empire, and his people are sort of scattered and subjugated, and he's sort of cast out and thought to be dead, but he's not. And so he sort of uses his brilliant strategic mind from being a general and his like ability with a sword to sort of go track down all of his people and sort of free them. And I assume ultimately, I'm not through the book yet, but ultimately to get back to the city and free it from this empire that has taken over. And it is written in an interesting way because it is it reminds me a lot of like a 90s era like episodic TV show. Something like maybe even Hercules is something I think of. I probably just because of the sword and sorcery, but there are like sort of mythical creatures that like the first chapter, he's like encounters this big winged serpent that can speak, and so he's talking to it and reasoning with it. But each chapter is almost like a self-contained adventure story where you follow Hanovar as he has sort of encountered a new situation, but it's also like a long-running arc as well. So there's like some meta narrative, and it's going from each of these sort of almost individual adventures, and it's sort of carrying along the plot as it goes. So it does sort of remind me of like an old episodic adventure series. And I don't know. I think the chapters keep getting better as it goes. I've been enjoying it so far. It's like over 500 pages, and I'm like maybe over 100 pages in, but I've got a ways to go. But I've been hearing very good things about it, and I'm enjoying it so far. I think it's really well written and really engaging. And there is some like gore to it, but it's not like over the top. But yeah, I thought I would recommend it because I'm enjoying it quite a bit. There's 3 books. And the third one, I think, was just published this year. So I don't know if there's any more planned or if this is like a trilogy. But yeah, Lord of a Shattered Land, The Chronicles of Hanovar. Check it out.
Interesting. I also have been reading. I started up Howling Dark again.
Oh, good. I'm excited for you to get to the second half of this book. And we can
far.
We can really dig in.
He's still on the first planet they get to. He just escaped the Painted Man. So that was a cool sequence. I'm excited to dive back into it. I didn't have a ton of time to read this week, but it's great. And he's using that sword that I like so much.
Yeah, I was going to say, you were concerned that there wouldn't be enough use of the sword. I think you'll get as much use of the sword in this book as you are after with this one, but it's so good. I think I like it better than the first book. And
I'm loving it so far.
Definitely the second half once you get in there. I can't wait to sort of, we almost will want to do like, I don't know, dedicate a good sized chunk of an episode to just talking about that book.
I'm into that. Hopefully I'll have more time to read this week and I'll make some headway. The other thing I've been doing instead of reading is, I think a couple of weeks ago I talked about Factorio, the Space Age DLC. Some old YouTubers I used to watch who did Minecraft stuff have started like doing a live stream of this, and it's like very fun to watch to me. And I might start playing Factorio again. I have it. Factorio, I think, was that game. I can't remember if it's Factorio or Satisfactory. One of those games. Me and my friends loaded up, and we ended up. I think it was Factorio. The first time we played it for 7 hours straight because it just like sucked us in. And this Space Age DLC seems really cool, but it also would be, I think it takes like 20 or 25 hours if you know what you're doing to get to the Space Age DLC. So I don't know if I'm going to do that or just try to play Factorio vanilla for a while and see if I should buy the DLC. A thing I'm more likely to do, though, and the thing I really wanted to talk about, is a Minecraft mod. And I've started watching a playthrough of people playing this mod. It's a mod called Minecraft Create, which came out a couple of years ago, and they've continued to add on to it. This trailer I posted is from 2022, but they've continued progressing what you can do in this. But Minecraft Create really adds everything I've ever wanted to Minecraft. It adds gears and power mechanics and trains and a lot of stuff that's in Factorio and Satisfactory, and it seamlessly adds it to Minecraft to the point where a problem I've had with Minecraft is I'll play it for, however many hours, 20 hours or something, and create a nice little place, but then I don't really want to beat it. And then that kind of leaves me with not having any more goals. Like, obviously the main goal is to have fun and eventually to defeat the Ender Dragon. But I'm not really working towards anything once I've created my base and I've found rich veins of iron and whatnot. This adds basically you can make assembly lines for things, and it adds crazy stuff where you can make like huge factories that are creating things. This trailer is all about making a cake. Like they've made a crazy assembly line to make a cake in the game. But you can do all this other crazy stuff. And I feel like I'm always intimidated with mod packs because it's like a trouble to get them to work, and I probably just don't know what I'm doing. But this is just one mod, and it adds all of this crazy stuff. And so I think it would be pretty easy to get going. And so next week or the week after, I might have loaded it up and have started playing it. But I wanted to shout out this trailer. I don't know if there's a more current one, but it adds so much stuff to Minecraft that I have always wanted, like goals and like really long tails where you're like working towards something and you have to optimize how you're collecting materials. So it's a real Factorio type of thing. And so I wanted to shout it out. Create. You have to just search for like Minecraft Create mod. And you can see there's a ton of stuff on YouTube. A ton of people have played this, done Let's Plays with it. I'm watching a current one that the Yogscast are doing on Duncan's channel. If you search like Yogscast Duncan, he has a Create series called like the Jaffa Factory. And it looks very cool. This type of game I haven't played in a while. I was very into Satisfactory for a good amount of time, which just went 1.0 this year. But either this or Factorio, I think I'm going to dive into in the coming weeks. And I haven't decided which yet, but I wanted to shout it out.
There was a part of this trailer I'm watching, and there were like these cows that are brought under these weird like pump things, and it just like extends into the cow, and like it seems to like punch down into its body multiple times, and then like a little bucket of milk comes out.
Those are called, I think, pokers, and you can use those also to mine like fruit off of trees. So if you put one of those little pointing fingers, it'll point into a tree, and then that tree will get its fruit harvested. And other stuff as well, I think.
A crazy way to illustrate milking a cow.
Yeah, it is. But I think those are the only two. I'm just reading the Howling Dark and watching these Factorio and Minecraft Create Let's Plays is how I've spent my week.
Well, I can't wait to talk more about Howling Dark, and I still a little bit hope I can find the time to get through that No Man's Sky expedition, the sort of Halloween themed one that they put out. I didn't get a chance to play any more of it this week, but I had started it. We talked very briefly about that last week, but maybe I will get around to more of that. And I still am hoping that I will get back to playing more of the levels in Luigi's Mansion 2 HD, but that might just be do a little bit here, a little bit there type of a game for me.
Yeah.
So, but yeah. Other than that, do you have any parting wisdom?
You know, I tried a new candy. We talked at the beginning of show about what like favorite candies, and we want it to be the kind of house that gave away full-size candy bars. So I went to the store, and they only had like the C-list candy bars still full size that I could find, but I grabbed them, and so we gave out a bunch of full-sized whatchamacallits, which is a candy bar I've never had before. But you know, I tried it and it's pretty good. So my recommendation, my parting wisdom, is that there are probably a lot of candies you have not tried. That are, you know, commonplace. Maybe you're just a Snickers person, or maybe you always just get a Mr. Good bar. Try a different kind of candy bar, because there's tons out there.
What's in the whatchamacallit?
It seems to be, it's chocolate covered, and it is, it's got crispy layers, and it's also peanut butter. So it's kind of like crispy, it's kind of like a Nutter Butter, a chocolate covered Nutter Butter kind of.
I do like peanut butter mixed with chocolate.
It's very good.
Well, good advice. Go check out, and maybe now's a good time to do it. In the post-Halloween craze, you might find...
Yeah, it's probably cheap now.
You can probably find some stuff out there at reasonable prices. So, on that note, go ahead and follow this podcast on Spotify, YouTube, and YouTube Music, and leave us a rating, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.